You may not be broke because you earn too little. You may be broke because of a pattern you never learned to see. And that is what makes this trap so dangerous. It does not usually announce itself with one dramatic mistake. It does not always look like a luxury car, a gambling problem, or some reckless financial disaster that destroys everything overnight. Most of the time, it looks normal. It looks like a small payment here, a quick delivery order there, a subscription you forgot about, a weekend that cost more than you planned, a purchase that made you feel better for 20 minutes, then worse for the rest of the week. And because each decision seems small, you never treat it like the real problem. But then the month ends, the money is gone again, and you sit there trying to understand how you worked so many hours, made so many sacrifices, said no to so many things, and still somehow ended up in the same place. Not completely ruined, not completely hopeless, just stuck. And being stuck is its own kind of pain, because it makes you feel like you are moving but never arriving. You pay bills, you work, you try, you promise yourself next month will be different. Then next month comes and the same quiet pattern repeats. That is the silent trap. It is not always poverty. It is not always laziness. It is not always a lack of intelligence. Sometimes it is financial autopilot. Money comes in, money leaves. And somewhere between the two, your future disappears before it has a chance to become stable. Most people try to solve this problem by asking one question: how do I make more money? And of course, more income can help. It matters. It creates breathing room. It gives you options. It can change your life. But there is a difficult truth that many people only discover after their income rises. If the pattern does not change, the pressure comes back. A person who leaks money at $3,000 a month can leak money at $5,000 a month. A person who spends emotionally with a small paycheck can spend emotionally with a bigger paycheck. A person who uses money to escape stress can keep doing it even when the numbers look better. That is why some people earn more and still feel broke. Their income changed, but their system stayed the same. And the system is what matters. Imagine a small clay jar sitting on a wooden table. Every morning, someone pours water into it. At first, it looks like the jar is filling. But there are tiny cracks near the bottom, not one big crack, not anything dramatic, just small, quiet openings. A little water leaks out here, a little there. At the end of the day, the person looks inside the jar and wonders why it is almost empty. So they blame the size of the pour. They say, if only I had more water, everything would be fine. But the real problem is not only how much water enters the jar, it is that the jar has never been repaired. This is how money works for many people. They do not have one massive financial wound. They have dozens of tiny leaks. The coffee is not the reason someone is broke. The delivery order is not the reason. The new clothes are not the reason. The subscription is not the reason. But together, these things reveal something deeper, a pattern, a system, a way of reacting to life. That is why this trap is hard to escape, because when people hear the word spending, they often think the answer is shame. Stop buying things, stop enjoying life, stop being irresponsible. But shame is a weak foundation for change. Shame might make you stop for a few days. It might make you delete an app, cancel a plan, or promise yourself you are going to become a completely different person overnight. But shame usually does not build a new system. It just adds pressure. And pressure is often what created the spending in the first place. This is the emotional loop. You feel stressed, so you spend to feel relief. Then you feel guilty because you spent. The guilt becomes more stress. The stress makes you want relief again, so you spend again. And the loop continues. From the outside, it looks like bad discipline. From the inside, it feels like trying to breathe. That is why telling someone to simply stop spending often does not work, because the spending is not always about the item. Sometimes The item is just the excuse. What the person is really buying is a feeling of control, a feeling of comfort, a feeling of being normal, a feeling of not being behind for one small moment. This is where the identity trap begins. People do not only spend money on things, they spend money on versions of themselves. The version who seems successful, the version who is not struggling, the version who can go out with friends without calculating everything, the version who can order food because they are exhausted, the version who can buy something nice because life has been heavy and they feel like they deserve one small reward. And there is nothing wrong with wanting relief. There is nothing wrong with wanting beauty, comfort, connection, or dignity. The problem begins when your money is constantly being used to protect an image while your stability quietly weakens in the background. You look fine, but your foundation is cracking. You feel normal for a few hours, but your future becomes heavier. That is the silent trade. Appearance today in exchange for pressure tomorrow. And most people do not notice the trade because it does not happen all at once. It happens in small moments. A small yes when you meant to say no. A small purchase when you were tired. A small upgrade because the cheaper option made you feel behind. A small decision to ignore the bank account because checking it would ruin your mood. And slowly, avoiding the truth becomes part of the system. This is one of the clearest signs of financial autopilot. You stop looking. Not because you do not care, but because looking hurts. You avoid the banking app, you avoid the numbers, you avoid the budget. You avoid the feeling that comes when reality does not match the person you are trying to become. But money does not become less real because you stop looking at it. It simply becomes less visible, and invisible things are harder to control. The first step out of the trap is not making more money. It is seeing the pattern clearly, not judging it, not hating yourself for it, seeing it. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What system keeps repeating here?" That question changes everything, because if the problem is your character, you feel trapped. But if the problem is a system, then the system can be changed. You can begin by looking for the leaks, not every expense, not every tiny detail with obsessive perfection, just the repeated leaks that keep showing up. Where does money disappear without giving you real value? Where are you spending because you are tired? Where are you spending because you feel behind? Where are you spending because you want to avoid a feeling? Where are you spending because it has become automatic? This is not about becoming cheap. It is about becoming conscious. There is a difference. Being cheap is fear-based. It says, I cannot spend because money is dangerous. Being conscious is power-based. It says, I choose where my money goes because my future matters. That is the escape, not punishment, awareness. You begin separating your money into three categories: needs, leaks, identity purchases. Needs are the things that keep your life stable: rent, food, transport, basic bills, health, work, real responsibilities. Leaks are the things that do not destroy you individually, but weaken you repeatedly: forgotten subscriptions, convenience spending, random upgrades, small emotional purchases that never satisfy the emotion. Identity purchases are the most emotional ones. They are the things you buy to feel like someone else, someone more successful, more accepted, more in control, more impressive, less behind. And once you see these categories, you stop treating all spending the same. You stop blaming yourself for needing things. You stop pretending leaks are harmless. And you stop letting identity purchases silently decide your future. The next step is to build the first layer of stability. Not a perfect life, not wealth, not financial freedom. A first layer, because when people are trapped, they often imagine the solution has to be huge. They think they need to change everything immediately, make more money, cut every expense, build a perfect budget, become disciplined forever. But that pressure can make the trap feel even stronger. The first layer is smaller. It might be 1 week of expenses protected, then 2, then $1,000, then 2,000, then 1 month. The number matters less than the shift, because the moment you begin building a buffer, you are no longer only reacting to life. You are creating distance. Distance between a bill and a panic attack. Distance between stress and spending. Distance between wanting something and buying it automatically. Distance between who you were and who you are becoming. That distance is where control begins, and control does not always feel exciting at first. Sometimes control feels quiet. It feels like checking your account even when you do not want to. It feels like saying, "Not this time." It feels like waiting 24 hours before buying something. It feels like choosing stability over the version of yourself you were trying to perform. It feels like being honest without being cruel to yourself. And over time, the invisible trap becomes visible. The shadow loses shape. The cracks in the jar become clear. The circle you were walking in suddenly looks like a circle, and once you see the circle, you can step out of it. This is the part most people miss. The goal is not to hate spending. The goal is to stop unconscious spending from controlling your life. Money is not only a number, it is a direction. Every dollar is moving somewhere, toward stability, toward pressure, toward image, toward relief, toward freedom, toward another month of the same pattern. The question is not whether you are allowed to enjoy your money. The question is whether your money is quietly building the life you want or quietly keeping you inside the one you are trying to escape. That is the silent trap keeping people broke. It is not always a lack of effort. It is not always a lack of ambition. Sometimes it is a pattern so normal that it becomes invisible. Money comes in, money leaks out. Stress rises, relief spending follows, guilt returns, the cycle repeats until one day you stop. You look at the jar, you see the cracks, and instead of blaming yourself for being empty, you finally understand where the water has been going. That is the beginning. Not the moment you become rich, not the moment everything is fixed, the moment you see the trap clearly. Because the moment you see the trap clearly is the moment it starts losing power over you.